This video is brought to you by HelloFresh, but more on that in a moment. Hello, I'm Vince, also known as Peasant Kenobi on the internet, and recently I've been feeling pretty nostalgic and reflecting on some of the more broken decks that I've got to play in the past. That reflection has led me to make this video. It's going to be a bit more rambly, a little bit more freeform than normal. I'm going to say some kind of wild shit when I really think about it, but I think I've got a point somewhere in amongst this ramble. I am lucky enough to get to play my favourite game for a living. I'm a full-time content creator and Magic is my bread and butter. I make videos playing it, talking about it, and I get to play some ludicrous shit along the way. Over the last couple of years, Magic has had a power creep issue that is about fixed at this point, but we've still got more straight into modern sets coming, Lord of the Rings, Modern Horizons 3, so let's just wait and see with that. But there's been some crazy shit. War of the Spark, Walkers transforming things, Hogaks, Luris, Okos, Once Upon a Time's Underworld Breaches, Uros. It's been a wild time. And some of those decks that came from some of those cards were absolutely mad. And it was a good thing in some way. Some of these decks were insane. Hogak in particular is the one I'm going to focus on a bit during this video. It made for good content. Like, it was fun. I was talking about this on stream the other night with Rob a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about how fun it was just to play the new dumb broken thing, knowing full well that it was just a flash in the pan, that it wasn't going to last, that it wouldn't be here for very long. It's obviously part of a privileged position of being able to rent my decks and play it in videos. This is not good for the game if you were trying to buy into these broken decks to play one or two events before they're banned, like the people who bought into Eldrazi back in Eldrazi summer for the Bologna GP and stuff. But it still fills me with some weird nostalgia. Honestly, I've been as frustrated as the rest of you when it comes to the ongoing constant bans and power creep. And this video is a negative look at power creep in many ways. But I think what I'm going to talk about is a nostalgia for the things that are a flash in the pan and then go away, that you know is only temporary, that is fleeting, compared to things that stick around and transform your Magic experience for the rest of the time that you play. But before we get into all that, let's talk about today's sponsor, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's most popular meal kit provider, looking to make your meal planning and preparation as easy and as simple as possible. When you sign up to HelloFresh, you get to pick from a wide selection of meals, different world food options, high protein meat and meat-free options, all of which are delivered to your door. They come as fresh ingredients and allow you to prepare and cook them in just the right quantities to avoid waste. You get a recipe sheet to help you through preparation and cooking. All of this helps with portion control too. Something I really struggle with is that I often just cook too much, whether that be pasta or rices or just in general, and then there's either wastage or I eat too much, and that's not good for me trying to look after my health. HelloFresh also helps to encourage you to try new things. We cooked this teriyaki prawn pocky style bowl last night, and it's got kiwi salsa in it, which is chili, spring onion, and kiwi all together with some lime juice. My wife and I would never have tried it, and it was phenomenal. It was so tasty, beyond impressed. My favorite thing about HelloFresh is getting to try different styles of meals and new recipes, and getting the right spices and herbs and elements to those meals to try new things without the waste. It's a flexible service that allows you to customize your meal options up until a couple days before delivery. It allows you to skip a week if you're out traveling, and you can cancel at any time. No commitments. Use my link in the description below or go to HelloFresh.com and use the code POGKENOBI16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes plus free shipping. I've done plenty of fucking videos talking about power creep and commentating on bans over the years. It's a regular topic on this channel. I think the whole idea of power creep and the advancing constant innovation within the game is fascinating, both as a player and a critic and from a game design perspective, right? What games can you think of that add so many moving parts constantly like Magic does? It is truly unique, or at least trading cards are truly unique, or trading card games are truly unique in this fashion. I did a video earlier in the week that if you haven't watched it, it'll be in the cards and linked at the end of this one, where I talk about the dichotomy, or the scale, or the sliding scale, should I say, between boring and broken. Mark Rosewater makes this point in his GDC 16, I believe it was, presentation, where he talks about a lesson they learned that players will forgive you for breaking the game or printing powerful things, shall we say, as opposed to just playing it safe and being boring. The idea is that broken is exciting, or powerful is exciting, where boring might make you bored and you just leave the game. I agree with him, although there are caveats to that. For example, the idea of printing a lot of broken stuff means that decks get banned, and there's a financial problem because the game is not cheap. So if you have to keep rotating through decks to get banned all the time, that's not great. Also, the viability of it as a competitive game is lessened if the winner is the person playing the most broken thing at any one time. I've started playing quite a lot of Warhammer over the pandemic and into now, and I did a WoW tournament recently. But in reality, Warhammer as a competitive game is very much about chasing the metagame, about playing whatever is broken right now before Games Workshop can fix it. And that's kind of dumb. There's got to be somewhere in the middle of that scale between broken and boring, and in that video I do posit the idea that Innistrad, original Innistrad block, and the set itself is that middle ground. And the reason we don't see that middle ground broached very often, or at least there's not a lot of examples of it, I'd probably say that Return to Ravnica might be a similar area, but there's a whole debate around that, go watch the other video. But the reason we don't see that very often is because it's very hard to strike that balance between broken and boring and get to powerful in a way that is meaningfully impactful to the game, but not a problem for the game, which is what this video is about. Something that I touched upon in that video is the idea that there's a different kind of boring or frustrating within Magic. I don't use the word boring because we're using that for the bottom end of the scale, right? But it floats somewhere in the middle of all this, above the middle point, I'd say. The kind of cards that strive to be powerful enough to see extensive play across multiple formats end up transforming formats and pushing older cards out too. Sometimes this is okay, things like a Grim Flayer, Tireless Tracker, or even Thought Monitor in more recent time. They aren't problems, no one's really complaining about these cards. Hell, 2 of those 3 cards have been outclassed in recent time and hardly see any play anymore, which is kind of wild. But some of these cards floating on the powerful but not broken end of the spectrum in this frustrating area are so good that they warp formats and often lead to play patterns that are not desirable or fun. And yeah, of course I'm talking about Murktide Regent. This video isn't completely an assassination of Murktide Regent. There are many other cards that fill this slot too. Things like Prismatic Ending. Again, this video is not just an assassination of that card, but it fits this build very well. They don't step over that line. They're not breaking the game, not in a splashy way that's overt and makes people sit up and notice. But they do go largely unnoticed during spoiler seasons, other than being pointed out to be very good, and in the ongoing discussion. Murktide Regent might be actually a bad example of this, because at the moment it's around 10% of the metagame of Modern, actually I think it's more like 12 if you look at Goldfish, and over 20% of the metagame in Legacy as well. Basically Blue-Red Delver and Blue-Red Tempo decks with Murktide are the best decks in both formats. So because of this, people are noticing. People are noticing and taking note of Murktide Regent. For this reason, Murktide Regent might actually be more on the broken side of things, not fit into this new category that I'm coming up with. So maybe it's a bad example. I'm going to use a different word to boring. Like I said, that's the bottom end of the scale. That's to describe things like original Theros blocks, Born of the Gods, a forgettable set with just 1 card in the entire set, and that was Brimaz. Fuck, I love Brimaz. I'm going to posit the idea that we call it like unrelentingly good. It's not quite broken. On the scale, if broken was here, it's a little bit back. It toes the line but never steps into broken. Or you're not sure if it's stepping into broken. Things like Deathrite Shaman toe that line for a long time. These cards are so powerful they can't be ignored. But it teeters on that edge of broken, and thus it changes the face of multiple formats and doesn't see the banhammer either for a long time or at all. Oko is broken. Thassa's Oracle is close, but not quite. It's unrelentingly good. You cannot ignore how good it is. It's the best option for that archetype, that role. It is a strictly better Labman. Nothing really compares to it. And in some ways, it helps to homogenize the game. And the problem with this stuff is it's not healthy for the game. I've talked about this before when talking about both Thassa's Oracle and Walking Ballista. Thassa's Oracle is a card that just basically makes a load of combo decks that draw a lot of cards end with Thassa's Oracle. And Walking Ballista is such a powerful card that, at least in standard, similar to Smuggler's Copters in many ways, it being a colorless threat and an answer all in one, and also an infinite mana combo outlet that then saw a lot of playing combo decks, at least until Thassa's Oracle came around in many ways. This isn't good. It homogenizes things. Deathrite Shaman and Arkham's Astrolabe are examples of really towing this line and perhaps stepping over it. They're at a point where if you aren't playing them, you're probably objectively wrong for not doing so in their respective formats, but people argued in good faith that they shouldn't have been banned because they aren't broken, at least not in an overt way that makes you sort of like I said, sit up and notice. And this is where I get this weird feeling of nostalgia. I am not nostalgic. Well, I'm nostalgic for Deathrite Shaman, but for different reasons. That was just a good time in like my life. It was when the channel was really picking up before Deathrite Shaman got banned. So that's a different reason. I associate it with a certain time. But I'm actually nostalgic for some of the broken decks I've played on the channel over the last couple of years as well. Not because I associate them with a certain time period, but because that flash in the pan is kind of exciting. Dare I say it's kind of sexy. Pre-nerf Lurrus, or any of the companions for that matter, Hogak. And a little bit further back, and it kind of fits into this category too, but I didn't really play it on the channel that much, but Eye of Ugin. These are all examples of these, where Modern was an absolute fucking shit show when they were legal. But they were a shit show in a way that was so obviously fucked. It was so fucked, you knew it wasn't going to be for long. Like some kind of debauched night out on the town, you're drunk off your mind on broken shit. You're laughing as you smash people with it. Hell, you can't help but laugh when you get smashed by a turn 2 kill with a fully powered Hogak deck. But you know it's fleeting. You know you'll sober up. It is but a flash in the pan. It is just tears in the rain. And maybe I'm getting a little bit too poetic there. But think about it. Fully powered Hogak or Gyruda was the heavy night of drinking and debauchery, and the hangover is the rest of the shit left over by those sets that will never see a ban. After War came out and power creep was evidently happening, and then Modern Horizons landed shortly afterwards. Eventually things like Mycos and Flatus got banned out of Modern. But the genie was out of the bottle, and the Pandora's box of other Planeswalkers, Teferi, Time Raveler, and other questionable card designs. It's all out of the bag. And sometimes these will cross the line and be so good they have to go. Teferi, for example, is banned in Pioneer, for example, but he lives on in Modern and Legacy. And for the record, I don't really dislike 3-mana Teferi, but I think it's a good example of a card that creates play patterns that a lot of people don't actually like. I don't think it's 3-mana Teferi in particular. I think the choice for War of the Spark to make all of the static abilities of Teferi, Ashiok, Narset, and Khan, and the rest of the ones that everyone forgets, but all the static abilities to be not parallel, to only affect your opponent, was strange, honestly. And I think a lot of those cards would have been better if it affected both players in a truly Staxy way. And like I said, 3-mana Teferi isn't something I have a personal vendetta against. I think I've had fun games against it and less fun games against it. I think it's just a Magic card that exists now, and I'm okay with that. War is but the tip of the iceberg, or a minor version of this. The real showcase of Pandora's box being opened and us having to live with the shit that poured out is Modern Horizons 1 and 2. I actually really like Modern Horizons. I want to just put that out there right now. I think the vast majority of designs from Modern Horizons 1 and 2 were really fun and interesting. Remember that Urza at one point dominated Modern, right? And now, much like Tiles Tracker, it has been outclassed, or it is not as good as other options, and it's not seeing anywhere near as much play, if any play at all, really. But now we live in a post-Force of Negation world. We live in a post-Ragavan, post-Dragon Age Channeler, post-Murktide world. And by post, I don't mean after the fact. I mean, the Monkey did eat a ban on Legacy, but what I really mean is that we live in a world that is now dealing with the slow burn of having to deal with a metagame that is warped and changed in ways that make the formats unrecognizable to what they were before. Oppressive forces like Murktide, Prismatic Ending, things that transform the face of Magic. Those things are just here now. They're not a flash in the pan, and we can't guarantee they're going away. And this isn't just a Modern Horizons thing, but Modern Horizons is the penultimate, the biggest example of it. This sort of thing happens with like cards like Fatal Push as well, where Fatal Push pushed loads of shit out of the format and changed Modern forever. Same way with Bolt, right? When you print Bolt into Standard Lightning Bolt, you now create attacks on what creatures can and cannot be played. You change the format, in the case of Standard, not forever, but you change the format. At least when Hogak or Underworld Breach were doing dumb shit in formats, it felt momentary. It felt fleeting. You knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel. But at this point, there's a good chance that Murktide is just here to stay, and that's kind of fucking depressing. I do look back fondly on many a broken deck. As a creator mainly, I got to fuck about a lot and make fun and interesting videos with the broken shit. And maybe that's another part of it, right? Broken decks are flashy and exciting and interesting to watch, commentate and learn about, and then have them go away. Murktide is a fair card in a fair deck that isn't flashy or fancy. It's currently 12% of the Modern metagame, it's 20% of the Legacy metagame, and I think the card leads to kind of boring and stale shit. There is a development right now in Legacy that Delver decks, they're the decks playing Murktide by the way, but they're playing multiple copies of Pyroblast in order to kill blue permanents like Murktide and Kappa Cannoneer. And it's cool to see metagames evolve, and in some ways when they do evolve, sometimes they push things out or down, and Murktide won't continue to be the oppressive force that it is. Hell, maybe time will tell. But still, I look back nostalgically at the flashes in the pan and not so much at the long-term shit. Like Arkham's Astrolabe I don't remember fondly. Arkham's Astrolabe was a pain in the ass for like, what, a year? Maybe it's the flashy nature of the combo kills, like I said, of Zerda and Hogak that makes them seem so fun in retrospect. But the oppressively dull nature of FedEx running Murktide is fucking boring. Maybe the problem ultimately, as we see Murktide be a dominant force in these formats, is that blue cantrips in Legacy or Days are the problem. Or maybe Fetchlands are the problem in every format. Maybe I'm just a boomer who wants to hold on to some nostalgia, either for broken, dumb shit that created flashy things. Like, for example, Oko has been mentioned a couple times, but I don't really miss Oko. Because the play pattern, the explosive or interesting thing that you see with Hogak or Zerda, you didn't see with Oko. Oko was just
maybe I'm just
bored, lyrical, and I'm nostalgic.
Wall.
Maybe this is me turning into a combo player
times.
in my old age. I don't know.
Maybe
it's that too. If you found these ramblings resonated with you, why don't you check out my other video where I talk about boring versus broken and the idea that, you know, which way should we lean? Thank you for listening to me indulge in some nostalgia of how I weirdly miss Hogak and other flashier broken cards, and how I will never miss Oko or Astrolabe. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.